All right, Keith Callaway. We got Keith Callaway today on Ditch Digger CEO. Chris and I are excited to interview Chris and hear his story. A paving brother across the country in a beautiful area of Portland, Oregon. What a beautiful area you work with. Then I've been there a few times. But Keith, welcome to Ditch Digger CEO, buddy.
Glad to have it. Glad to be on. I was happy to get the invite. Appreciate it.
Well, we're excited because you're our second Ditch Digger CEO guest. That's a paving company, and I talk paving a little bit on my podcast, but not a ton. Except like my first episode was about what I do, so it was in there. But otherwise, I love talking pavements because when I talk pavements with people that have built something in this industry, I'm usually talking to somebody that really appreciates what blue collar work is all about. Usually I appreciate the American dream and the opportunity to build something in this great country. Something that wasn't easy to build, but when you build it like you have, and I've been blessed to, it's a pretty cool place to be in. It's on my throat.
It's a good living, that's for sure. And then some.
Yep. So let's talk, Keith. Let's talk about the beginnings. You've been doing this for a while. Kind of let us know when you started, how you started, and why you started, and what that looked like.
Well, I'll try to keep it short, but the inception of this whole thing is my in-laws. The year I got married, 1983, my in-laws got into the paving business, and then they brought most of their equipment over to Oregon because they tended to be mobile, like move around. And they brought it to Oregon. They got some jobs near me. I helped them on a couple and whatever. And I thought to myself in a very prideful way, I don't recommend that to anybody. Be more real than I was. That if these dummies can do it, I can do it and get rich. So this is what I thought. That's not exactly, of course, what happened. Is that I actually wasn't a very good businessman. Come to find out that I did get into it eventually in 1987 after I found out that you actually have to have some capital, which I had zero. I was looking for a way. By the time I started in 87, I had 2 kids and another one on the way. And so, and didn't really see us stopping before 4 kids, because kind of the number my wife and I decided that, I think we're going to be pretty good parents. This is kind of what we talked about as our family plan. So I was looking for a way to make enough to support the family, to pay the bills and all that. What it ended up becoming is during the winter out here, paving's not as much of a thing. Like, we're getting better at it now in the winter than we did, but it was really slow. So basically the way that went is I would take on side jobs and learn. I learned siding, I learned framing, I learned sheetrock. I added on I did a bathroom remodel, I did a kitchen remodel, I added on to a guy's house. This is all in the winter while I'm paving in the spring, summer, fall.
Mm-hmm.
And so I learned a lot about construction, but what I learned mostly is that per hour spent, at least with my skill set and my go fast drive, and then I just want to break after I'm done, the paving fit me the best, and I could make the most money per hour so that I could get off early some days to go coach my kids' teams and do the other things that have always been a high priority to me, which is family. And then somewhere along those early years, 85, 86, I had some unasked for coaching from some family members and others that basically said, if you're working a Saturday, you got a lot of kids, young man, if you're working a Saturday, then you're doing something wrong. Now, that's not to say we never work Saturday, right? We do sometimes work Saturday, but if that's in your normal cycle, you're actually stealing from your family. You're taking something they deserve. You created them, you're responsible for them. That's the way my wife put it. She said, she sat down, literally sat me down and said, I'll do whatever you want and whatever I need to do. But this whole parenting thing, we're in this together. So you need to figure out how you're going to be here more.
I
And
like it.
that's some strength, right? And so I did. I said, okay, I'm going to get into a business where the dollars work out. And again, I was telling somebody on the phone earlier that I didn't actually sit down and write it down and do the math. I did the math as I was driving to the next job site in a crisis. So I got to have money for the electric. I'm going to the job site, and then I'm doing the math in my head. Like, what can I do to make the most, to make what I need? So that small focus mindset actually held me back as I was 15, 20, 25 years in business. But
you know, and something you mentioned though is so important, right? Having a great partner in a wife that's wife, husband, spouse, whatever, girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever. When you're setting out into this world of paving and construction and hard work, right? You're going to have those long nights, right? Early mornings, long nights, and sometimes you get to work a Saturday or Sunday, and you got to have a partner that understands it, right? And you have to respect that partner like you did when they basically create the awareness that, hey, you know what, yeah, our family is first, and I want to build this family with you, right?
Yeah.
I actually had that moment about 10 years in. About 10 years in, that my wife said, you know what, either you start taking one Sunday off a month, or I'm not sure how long this relationship's going to last. And at the time we had 3 kids. We had 3 of our 4 kids by that point. And she just gave me a really, really nice ultimatum that said, hey, you start taking one Sunday off a month, or not sure how this relationship's going to go in the long run. And sure enough, she made me think about it. And eventually I took a Sunday off a month, and within a few months, 5-6 months, I liked it a lot. And I said, you know what, I'm going to take every Sunday off. And I did. And eventually, Saturdays we spent a little more time with the family. I definitely, when our kids got into sports, started taking those games off always, or trying to get off of the games. And what it taught me, and I'm not sure about you, Keith, but it taught me is you got to have people on your team that respect all that, and that can fill in for you if you do got to get away for a family event, or if they have to get away for a family event. You want to make sure that you build this culture that respects, hopefully, God and family and hard work. And boy, you know what? You better build every position in your company with a number 2 that can take the place of that number 1 in every case, right?
Yeah, I didn't learn that very early. And so that was one of my pain points about 10 years ago, was trying to figure that out. When I didn't figure it out earlier.
Mm-hmm.
But what I did do is I taught them that was important to me. And it was important to me for them also. So I would give them opportunities that I'll be here. I'm going to teach you how to do the last 20% without me. And then I moved that to, I'm going to teach you how to do the last 30% without me. And until some things happened about 10 years ago that really forced the issue on us, that's the way it went. I was out in the field with boots on for over 30 years. And I look back now and I say, well, I could have used my mind a lot more and we'd been further ahead, but we've been very blessed. I mean, we really have been very blessed in the last 8 years. We went from 5 people to this year, we got up to 50. So, and it's a lot to manage, and we're learning new stuff. It's all uncharted territory as we grow and start new things, but it's actually not overwhelming now because we have some clarity on how to do it.
In the last 8 years about that. Okay. So you eventually had to get, outside of the business and look and really kind of overseeing the business from 10,000 feet, right? To understand how to replace yourself and other people on your team to be able to scale and grow and serve your customers even better, right? Without Keith being on every job with a shovel in his hand.
Yep.
And I think in our industry, that's really common. It took me about 20 years before I thought the same way you did. Now I've been blessed for over 20 years. I've been, not in the field every day and like I was, but I mean, I actually love doing what I did. So it was tough for me, like you, tough for you to move out of a position you love so much, right? You love running that paver, you love running the grader and ripping out asphalt and concrete, right? It's a lot of fun.
I was the best one at it. So of course that was cool, right? It fed my ego.
That's right.
And that's a lot of founders, business owners. That's what a lot of supervisory types management I don't understand is that their life gets better if they teach people to be the best at it and trust them to be the best at it. Because we're always the best in our own minds for sure, and maybe even in practice. But we have to stop being the best and teach the others to be the best.
Stop being the best, thinking we're the best, and actually, like you said, be patient enough to trust others. And you said trust, right? Trust others to be the best they can be, to take to grow your business, to serve your customers better, to serve themselves better, because now there's more opportunities. You step out of the way, and the next guy steps out of the way, right? There's opportunity for those that step into that role. Yeah. And that's the fun of building a great team, is seeing other teammates rise to the occasion, right? And take on more responsibility and be able to feed their families easier, to, really be able to put their kids in college and do all the great things the family does, right?
Yep.
So, okay. So when it comes to like revenue, so you're a couple $1 million company back 9 years ago, and now, and you're
there was some family crises going on and some major issues in the family, in my family, and personally. So 9 years ago, we did 800,000.
Mm-hmm.
And we just we're almost, well, we're at about 16 million now.
Wow.
So
only 20 times.
Yeah, only 20 times. Right. It's, as I look back, it's like, oh, some of those years we should have probably slowed it just a little. But man, you get in a wave, you don't stop the wave, right? You ride the wave. And so what we did is we discovered how to, first of all, right people, right place, right position, right people, right seat. And my son, who works with me in the business, during that year, 8 years ago, circumstances helped us. But it focused us to to somewhat where we belonged, but more where we didn't belong in the business. I did not belong in the field because he was a lot higher motor than me. I didn't realize that. Prior, he had been in the office and he'd driven the sales and all of that. And I just assumed I was the old guy, I'd be in the field. But that was completely wrong. Circumstances switched that. And the first 4 years after that, from 8 years ago, the first 4 years we doubled every year.
Nice.
And because we just pulled this lever, we can produce more. Let's sell more. We got to hire a person. And then wait, that means we need new equipment, because then we can produce even higher. And we just kept pulling that lever, teeter-tottering up. And then eventually there's 4 sides to it, where we're having to build this finance side, the administrative side of our company. And now we've got like 7 people in our office, and 7 people, including myself, on the sales team. And then the rest are all operations, so.
Awesome. That's awesome. What great story. I mean, so you think about it. So you basically, you've been in business for how many years now? 35?
I started K&L, registered the name in August 40 years ago. I didn't actually start doing the work until 39 years ago, but roughly same age as you, same roughly 40 years we've been in business.
So think of the story you can tell, or the education you can give anybody in business when I talk about something similar, but it's for basically 32 years or so, right? You were in the business, working the business, in it every day, like loving it. And then 32 years in, there's something happens, and whether it's your son entering the business, or what are all the things that happen that made you think about, okay, now we need to scale this thing. I need to get out of the way. What gave you that mindset?
Well, not to get too deep into the story, because it's not just my story to tell, but my son had lost his license because he got into a whole bunch of trouble. He was in the business for 12 years prior also. Got a divorce, ended up in a lot of bad situations, tried to destroy his life, tried to destroy the business in the process. And that part of the story is his to tell. But what happened when he came out of all of that, he didn't have a driver's license. So what did that do? He kind of came back after this whole year or two away, basically. I mean, he was here, but he wasn't with me. wasn't shoulder to shoulder. And now he was determined to do that. So no driver's license. Where does that put him? That puts him on the job. It doesn't put him in sales. He's not meeting customers. It puts him on the job. So what we found out by that one circumstance is that right person, right seat is important. Over the next 2 or 3 years, I literally had to, here, I'll raise my hand so you can see it. I had to peel my strong shovel holding fingers off of the responsibilities of the field operations. And it was a peeling one finger at a time. It's hard work. As founders, I have my priorities. I have my way of doing it, and that's the way it's done. And I, over the last, over that number of years, I had to peel my fingers off and just let it go. And did we lose a little bit of quality? Perhaps, but it's less than 10% to gain 30, 40, 50, 100% more production. And so did we give up a little bit for the customer? What I found out is that the customers didn't care about that last 5%. I did. I was holding us back.
Yeah.
And then on the sales side, we hired this guy. We're like, oh no, we can produce so much. I got to hire sales. So we hired this guy that honestly used to sell drugs. I mean, he was a hustler. I mean, the hustler in the bad sense, but also a hustler in the good sense. So he went out and he just knocked doors all day long. And he'd call us up and he'd say, hey, I got this guy over here that wants his driveway paved. And so he gave us the length, the width, what the guy wanted, kind of a rough overview. And so we're having to figure it out in our heads what he's describing. And he doesn't know the industry. And so what we did was we're like, okay, well, we know he's a good salesman. So what we'll do is we'll take our normal price for what we're picturing and we'll just add 25%, 40%, 50% on top of it, and then tell him to go sell it. What we found out is the sales rate didn't go down. So I and my son were holding us back from charging what we should have been because of our mindset. So this guy comes in, he doesn't know the industry. He doesn't know he's not supposed to sell it for $5,000. We were selling it for $4,000. He's selling it for $5,000 or $6,000 or $7,000 because guess what? The market would bear it. Mm-hmm. So all of a sudden we're in a position of, we're not only selling, we're selling more. And now we can produce at a high level. And now we can make more dollars. Guess what? We can update our equipment, which gives us more efficiency, which makes us better in the market. And this is like this revolving door of pulling that teeter-totter back and forth. So we ended up hiring more salespeople. Currently we have 5 and we're probably headed for 6 at some point.
Nice.
So that's what happened within that first year or so after that crisis is we got seats and then we created the sales that matched the productivity we both could have.
Yeah. Sometimes we don't understand that, we think that a customer doesn't want to pay more than a certain amount of money for a job. But if you really understand sales and you can sell value, right? And and for 10% more, you know that you're going to deliver value. And if you can do 10% more for value that's better than somebody else's, that's your old price. Let's say your old price is, $5,000 for that driveway. Your new price is $6,000. But at $5,000, you're competing with other paving companies that aren't as good as you, aren't delivering the same value as you. You get a great sales team that can sell the value of, paying 10 or 15% more for a product that's much better. Then that's a good thing. It's not a bad thing, right? And sometimes we get in our own way thinking, so nobody wants to pay me to make 15% net profit. I got to be about 10. That's a bad attitude, right? I mean, great businesses trade better if they're making 20% net margin instead of 5 or 10. So if you're a great business delivering value, you should be delivering that type of profit to yourself and your team, and shouldn't be shy about it. And sometimes it's a great salesperson that gets you over that thinking, because they don't care about the net or where you're at. They just care about selling, and they'll sell at whatever price.
Yeah, I was on a call the other day with a guy in Michigan that his business is growing really well. And he asked the question of a group of us, I'm too busy. I'm booked out too far. And pretty much everybody said, well, you're just not charging enough.
That's right.
And he's like, well, I raised my price 20%. And we said, you're not charging enough. If you're booked out 5 or 6 months, then you're not charging enough. And he's like, yeah, but I raised my price 20%. And I said, no, you don't see it like that.
Yeah.
Yes, your sales rate is probably not going to be affected because people want you. So
Some people
raise your price
some people
again and you'll solve the other problem and
So
make
you
more
might-
money doing it.
So you met plenty of people in this industry probably as you talk to people across the country doing what we do. And,
Yeah.
and I'll talk to people every once in a while. They'll say that, I sell out a year ahead of time. I'm all filled out a year ahead of time. Okay. That's not something to be proud of, right? I mean, yeah, that's not a good thing. What if the market changes? What if asphalt goes to the roof or concrete, whatever your biggest materials are, right? I mean, now you sold out for a year at losing prices. That's not a good thing,
No. No,
So
the furthest we got out this year, and granted, the economy is affected. We have a residential side, and it got affected big time this year. It's not like it used to be. We were only, the furthest we ever got out was about 3.5 weeks because we want to make sure we can pull the levers for production. We want to produce at that high level so that we can get to our customers as soon as possible.
I like it. Yep. I think I call it, we're always calibrating. I think a calibration of machinery, remember, we're our business is a machine and you're always calibrating, right? Whether it's the price, your what profit you're expecting to make. It all depends. It's kind of like the airlines, right? You can really run your business a little bit like the airlines do. And it's basically supply and demand. If we got tons of work out there, we've got to be smart enough to understand we can't do it all. So let's make sure that our pricing is such that we get what we can handle. And then if there's no work out there, we got to go after work. Okay. How low can we go and still feed the families that are operating this machine? Right.
Yeah. So what we've done, the economy's down, granted in the Northwest, I assume it is most around the country. So now some of our production systems are so perfected or so robust. I'll put it that way. Probably not perfected. That's overstatement. If I'm involved in the sentence, it's an overstatement. But they're so dialed in that now we can look at the jobs we want and raise our chance of getting them by looking at it as what we make during the 8 hours, the 10 hours or whatever during the paving shift. Mm-hmm. And look at the margins on the other end and look at it as a whole for the year instead of looking at each job has to make a certain percentage.
Sure.
What are our goals? What are our net goals? And how do I divide those up? And will that job, if I lower that price, still fit the model? Then yes, then we bid it at that price because we can go produce it.
Okay, so what the stuff you're saying here, Keith, is awesome for people that are in this business for 5, 10, 15 years. Lessons you're talking about are lessons that sometimes we don't learn those first 10, 15, 20 years. It took me a long time. It took you and I both a long time, right?
Yes,
so
absolutely.
Something that I've been doing the last 7, 8 years now that I think provides amazing value to not just my team members, my leaders, and myself, is really building my businesses off like not profit, not revenues, not just quality customer, but all of those things combined. We basically look at our businesses as the enterprise value. So call it EV, right? Enterprise value. If you can build your business and your leaders, your son, any leaders on your team could get incentivized to build the enterprise value every year, okay? That's really the most important thing, because if your value of business isn't going up in value, then your investment really didn't go up in value either, right? I mean, you made profit, you made some profit, maybe you took some distributions, but my goal and my leaders' goals in every business we have is really grow the enterprise value. And to do that, they have to actually study the industry a little bit. They have to track what businesses are selling for in the industry. And this is our business that we're not like looking to sell, right, Keith? We're not looking to sell. So people will say, why do you care, Gary? Why do you care about enterprise value when you don't sell them anyway? You're not selling your payment. That's not it. If I'm not growing the value of the business, the business itself isn't serving my teammates, my customers, or myself and the investors as well as it could, right? So enterprise value growth is a little tricky, right? But I know that my industry and yours and my industry, there's numbers out there that'll tell you what they trade at today and what they'll trade at, what they traded at a few years ago, which might have been a little higher, okay? But overall, there's a number, and it's a multiple of the profit, multiple of the EBITDA or the profit, however you weigh it.
Yeah.
And so if you can teach your teammates, your leaders, and heck, actually anybody who wants to learn, right?
Yeah.
About that, in my opinion, you'll continually grow like you have been growing. So your growth right now is incredible. In 8 years to grow, 20 times, right? Or 2,000%, right? That's 2,000% is incredible. That's a great growth story. And that's awesome. But now to grow to the next, 2,000%, right? It's going to take, more people around you, more teammates around you to understand, what does Keith want? What does Keith and Keith Jr. and the family, is it Keith Jr., your son?
Yeah. Keith Jr. Yeah.
Yeah. So again, in my opinion, so I've got myself, and my son is Gary Jr., but his middle name is Austin. So his name, we call him Austin. Everybody knows him as Austin, but we're kind of like, it sounds like you're kind of hillbilly like us, right? Gary Jr., Keith
A
Jr.
little bit. It became, it's kind of a pain most of the time, but we can actually bank on the same accounts sometimes. So it gets can be handy in some ways.
Yeah, that's true. But anyway, like I said, the key to the future of growth for myself, and I think anybody like yourself, is really educating your team on what your goals are. Where do you want to be? And what's the business going to look like in 5 years, 10 years, so that they kind of know, right?
Yep.
And I'm guessing that for you to grow as much as you have the last 8 years, you've been sharing that more than you did the first 25, 30 years.
Oh, 100%. Everything is visible.
Yeah.
Every number I've shared with you and then some is visible. Like,
well,
where are we going to be in 10 years? What are we going to be doing? It's visible.
You say truthful and transparent is one of your values, right? One of your core values. I like it because I think to grow a business, we need to be that way to every teammate on our team so that they know, is this a place for them, right? We need to be that to every customer we have, because if we're transparent with our customers, they know what they're getting, right? They know who we are, they know what they're getting. And if they like your values, and you've got good ones, right? They like what you stand for, they're probably going to do business with you more than the person that they don't know, right? And I know that relationships is a big thing. You got values and relationship. I mean, so let's do that next. Let's go over those core values you have, because I think they're really important. I read them.
Took a look at it behind me on the wall here.
We can't read it from here though. I can't see it.
Well, the top one is purposeful. Yeah. And then personal and situational awareness.
Mm-hmm.
And that, you have already talked on this podcast about awareness, right? That's super important. And then can-do positive attitude is something that if you don't have that, you can hit a rabbit hole pretty fast. Truthful and transparent, and values relationships. You notice that none of those have dollars attached to them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's not who we are. So in the middle of that, our insignia is in the middle, and it says that our motto right there in the middle says, transforming lives one shovel at a time. That's our cause. That's why we exist. We're not a nonprofit. We have to have profit so we can do that job. Mm-hmm. But that's what we live for. That's why we exist. That's why we exist as a company. And then down below, which you still can't read, it says, how do we do that? We do it through quick and painless pavement solutions. We provide transformation for people through these core values, but our mantra internally is quick and painless pavement solutions.
Okay, so I like pavement solutions, but on your website, it's that paving solutions, which
I know we just in our annual changed it.
It's okay.
And haven't got it on all the stuff yet.
Because we've gone through all that over the years, paving, pavement, right? I actually had one of my businesses that I eventually sold called Pavement Solutions, right? But it just describes what you're doing, because now you're not stuck, thinking just asphalt pavements or concrete pavements or seal coat.
That's why we changed it. I said it's kind of just verbiage, but can we change it to this instead? Because it really is more encompassing, and the leadership group just says, yeah, let's do that. We just haven't gotten it all on all of our stuff yet.
So do you guys do any type of leadership organizational stuff that kind of guides your businesses and your leaders? What do you do there?
Constantly. Let me pull a document off the wall here. This right here, we call it quarterly conversations. What's in the yellow is our visionary, it's cultural leadership stuff, which it might be personal goal setting, mid-year check-ins, We do a finish line every year where I kind of do just a high level. How did the year go in your opinion? So I get feedback.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the orange as department leads, we do people analyzers. We go through our core values, how well are the fit, and we do that quarterly. And then have everybody set their personal, the word rocks, like what are they going to work on in the next 3 months? And we do that. They do that quarterly also. And then we do quarterly meetings. We also do occasionally these things called task force meetings when we have identified an issue in the company that we're going to need feedback from, especially multiple departments. Then I lead what I call a task force meeting. Matter of fact, next week I'm putting together one for change orders because we've had some issues in change orders and how we currently do it. And I want to streamline it if possible, but I got to get buy-in from 3 different departments to make sure it's working. Sure. So next week we're going to have a task force meeting and see if we can implement something by at least second quarter of next year that streamlines our change order process. Cool. We've already done that with warranties and just in general.
Okay. So it sounds like, okay, so we do this EOS system, entrepreneurial operating system. Yours sounds a lot like it. That's
the operating system we use, and it sits in that framework. But of course, there's tons of ways to be creative in that framework.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love it. And I think that's so important, right? That when you have an operating system like that is entrepreneurial, but yet you have systems that it's kind of help keep you on target, right? And you have people that you have yourself probably a visionary, and you have teammates that are more operational excellence or organizational, right? Or maybe you're the organizational guy and your son is the visionary. I don't know, right? But you kind of have to have that mix, and you can't let that mix get in the way of each other. You have to have them working together, right?
Yeah, cohesion.
Yeah, cohesion's important.
What EOS brought to us, and again, it's not a commercial for EOS. You got to find it the way you want it. Is it brought us clarity on how to do what we're supposed to do, and not have to work harder and longer to accomplish. Like when we were at 8 million, that's when we started EOS. So we've doubled since then in 3 years. But the reason we started is because we were desperate. That was at the tail end of the COVID, the COVID year, right? The worst one, the first one. And we were desperate. We were like, we can't do more. Like we are at our top. Each one of us in the executive team.
And look at you now at 100% growth in the 3 years, which is really good over this period of time. It smells like this last year, I feel most people I talked to in my industry said they're a little slower in 2023 than they were 2022.
Too. I mean, not slower. We grew, but not near as much as we thought.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So what are you guys use red as your colors?
Yeah. Red and black.
Okay. Yeah. We're red and yellow, or like a gold yellow, bright yellow, but red's a great color for trucks and for trucks and equipment you have out there for sure, for visibility. Right. How about when you think about your growth for the future, where do you look at, where do you guys want to be? I don't know, you go on 5 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, and how are you going to get there?
We look out within the EOS model, and it really is fit really well for us. The 3-year picture that really helps us. Yeah. It's close enough to actually see that we can get there. Not too far away, not so far away that it seems unreal. So we attach numbers to that. We've decided actually to basically become more efficient, and instead of pushing for top end growth, we've decided to, in the next 3 years, to grow our net profit by hopefully around 25 to 30%. That's our target. So we did forecast bigger numbers, but only based on inflation. So for 3 years, we're at 16 now. Our goal in 3 years is 22 million. And we're getting into a couple of zones where we can push those dollars, the high end, the gross dollars, but what we're really after is higher net. And
Yep.
so over the next 3 years, more efficiency, better systems, better processes inside the business. So that's what our biggest goal is.
So when you look at that, and we look at enterprise value, okay, a big part of enterprise value in our businesses is placed on that, right? I mean, your revenues can be up to wherever, but if your net profit or your EBITDA, whatever you want to call it, right? You can go by either one, is lower than industry standard, the business doesn't trade very well. In other words, the business value isn't very good.
Yep.
And what I'm finding out is kind of 15% is kind of a baseline that private equity groups are looking for to buy companies, right? That you're a 5% net profit, they really don't want you. If you're 10%, maybe they can work with you as long as your EBITDA is 12, 14, 15%, but their goal is 15%, because that's where they see a business that has long-term value. If you're at 4 or 5% net profit, unfortunately, you might have messed up a market. You might have messed up your customers. Their expectation is below bid, and that's not what you want to be either, right? You got to be a company that pushes value and shows value in their net profit. So as I look around at these private equity groups that are buying, and because I've had many approach me, as you have call you, but I've gotten in the weeds with a lot of them because I've considered just a couple of points. Hey, maybe I become a platform company to grow nationally. We've decided that we're not doing that we're going to be the platform company of our own to grow nationally. But either way, 15% net, or let's say EBITDA, either way, we're a couple percent off, right? Depending on how much capital expense you have.
Yeah.
That's a big number. That's not small. So you better be efficient to get there.
Yeah.
You better be.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We've grown so much that we've created inefficiencies.
Yep.
To be truthful. So I don't know, roughly we were at 11.5, 12% this during this year. Our goal in 3 years is to be at 16.
Perfect. You're right. You're right there. You're right. You're right where we are.
Yeah.
Do you use net or do you use EBITDA?
It's just our raw net profit.
Yeah. Which I think is a better way to do it. But when you look at how they trade, they use EBITDA, which is earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization, right?
Yeah. To us, those are all real.
Yeah. They're real numbers, right? They're all real numbers that you would add back, right? So, but if you work off a net and your team works off a net, in my opinion, it's more clarity to the team, and it's easier to really visually see, right, and understand. But and again, so some people will tell you in our industry that, oh, that's too much. Okay, too much. Why is it, if I'm doing business with somebody and they tell me that, Gary, you know what, I'm going to deliver you a great product, but I want to make 15% profit, I'm going to say, God bless you, man. That's fair, right? If they tell me, Gary, I want to make 90% profit, I'm going to say, you know what, that doesn't feel good. That doesn't seem right. But 15% is a very fair number in any industry, when many industries make a lot more than that, right? But our industry, that's a fair number, because we do have people that don't know what they're doing out there that bid stuff for nothing, right? And
we're also growing other divisions where, that number gives us the opportunity also to grow.
Yep.
You guys are heavy into concrete. We haven't really gone there. We sub everything out right now. Well, within 3 years, we might have our own division or create a sourcing network, or something creative, more than just like we do the concrete so we can pave. Maybe within 3 years, without sacrificing that 16% goal, maybe we'll create our own division,
right,
or some other creative way of getting there. Create more dollars. And the 22 in 3 years doesn't cap us. It just, like, if we get a couple of like 2 or 3 $2 million jobs that take most of the year, well, we're going to take those and we'll figure out a way to do them. We'll just staff up and build processes that make that happen. And when we go over 22, isn't that what we're all in business to do anyway? To smash our goals?
Yep, absolutely. If you're competitive and you love what you do, that's what's going to happen. Okay, tell me about this. Are you guys? Is it a union market or non-union market where you're at?
Non-union. There's only one player in our area that's union still, and they're all they're in highways and heavy construction, that kind of thing.
But commercial work, all non-union.
Yep.
and keep it that way when they come knocking, because as you know, it'll wreck your company culturally and everything else, right?
Yep.
And in the Chicagoland area, we're unionized because everybody is in the commercial
Yep.
sector. Everywhere else in the country, we're non-union, and because there's not many markets as strong and ignorant, I should say, as our market in Chicago.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. I've talked to some of your, I don't know if they're competitors or some other guys in the Chicago area, and boy, I can relate. I mean, I can't relate, honestly, and I feel bad for them.
It's terrible. They want to run your business for you without any liability or responsibility, right? And yeah, it's crazy. But okay, so when you think about your market, is Portland area, is it growing or is it shrinking now, as far as population and businesses and jobs and all that?
It's currently static, but it had been growing for a decade. Very robust growth. And there's a lot of hangover from that.
Yeah.
We have a lot of industry here that is, tech industry and Nike's here and some other things like that. And there's some big things here that drive a lot of that.
Yep.
So it's a good market. And I think the best part, as I look at it, is I'm on the lower age group of a whole bunch of founders of paving companies in my area that are in their mid to late 60s, and they're dropping off. These guys are dropping off. And so I don't think we'll go out and acquire, although we've had that conversation about some that are not right in the Portland area. Mm-hmm. But I don't think we'll acquire new companies. I think we'll wait and let those people go away.
Yeah.
Capture some more market that way.
And if you think of forget about road builders and stuff. If you think about the top 5 commercial paving companies in your marketplace, the top 5, do they average? Are you guys in that category or a little lower than that? And are they averaging 15 million of those top 5 in revenues, or 30 million, or where do you think they're at?
We're in the top 5, but we're probably on the bottom 2 of that top 5.
Yeah. So
we passed a whole bunch of them. There's a couple of them that have some sweet contracts that, of course, we're going to really go after, like our local gas company and some of those that have these 3-year contracts that are really good contracts. And that's part of what drives their revenue and their crew size and all of that up above ours. And yet they've been more aggressive over the years. Like, I didn't learn how to do business well until 8 years ago. And to be honest, I was in the wrong place. So I didn't get it. Your
butt was in the wrong seat.
I was in the wrong seat. So I didn't get it. So you get in the right seat, you start seeing it. Now we're competing, and now we got a lot of people mad at us, honestly.
That's good. You need to, if they're mad at you, it's just you're not doing the right thing, dude. Okay, so tell me about the equipment you got. What, you use Caterpillar equipment? You use Case? You use what type of equipment do you use?
It's a mixture, because
for
we
try to. Let's say pavers.
Say again.
For pavers, what do you use?
Our commercial pavers are Weilers.
Dude, you and me both. All right. What else?
Yeah. Matter of fact, we're doing our K&L retreat. We go away every January to do a 3 or 4 day team building retreat with our entire company. And we're doing it at the Weiler headquarters in Knoxville, Iowa.
Awesome. I've been there before. Yeah. We were one of the first companies to use Weiler back when they first came out with them. And we talked them up big because we were always Lee Boy guys. And Lee Boy is what we use the most for the commercial pavers, the 8500 stuff. And then Weiler came out, and that's what we wanted. We want something a little heavier duty that lays a little better mat, that acted like a big paper.
Yep. And it mostly does. Yeah. So we finally upgraded this year. We bought a Cat 655 for a lot of commercial stuff. We've had a 10-foot screed on a Blanox that was it's mid 90s, but it was all rebuilt. It's a good machine. It's old, little rough looking, but it's a good machine. It'll eat asphalt like nobody's business, let me tell you.
Yeah, that's AP 655, I think. Is that what that is?
No, it's a 55 something. Anyway. Oh, you mean the Cat?
The Cat.
Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they go AP. They call that AP 655.
Yeah,
that's a great.
It's a track machine.
Yeah, that's a great paver. And then
so we finally upgraded to that, and we do some public works. We're kind of getting in that world a little bit, and actually we've had pretty good success. And of course, the county loves it, and the counties and municipalities, they love that machine. They don't mind the old Brown Ox because it lays a nice mat, but
Yeah.
they really are happy when they see a new machine show up on.
How about your skid steers?
They're all case.
I
And excavators are all case. Most of our rollers are Bomag. We do have one cat and a couple of small, small various ones, little gas engine rollers.
Yep. How about your milling machines?
Bomag.
You like the Bomag, huh?
Well, we like the relationship with the local. Out here, it's the same dealer as the case dealer.
Sure.
And cool. The local rep is very responsive. Like, we have a problem, he'll literally get on a plane, fly out here. That means a lot. So,
it does.
For us, that's as important as making sure we have the Cadillac piece of equipment.
Yeah, no doubt. Now, how about does your son want to lead this thing, and what's your vision for the future with you and your son?
Well, the vision for the far future is that we know that long term, he's not going to stay in the business till he's 60 like I did.
Oh, no?
No, I don't think so. I think he's got higher and greater because he's super smart. He's an amazing speaker. I think he could really go change the construction industry. Honestly, he's just very articulate and really, really just smart. He's way smarter than I am. And so we've talked about this a bit, that, one thing he asked me, where do you think we're going to be in 5 or 10 years? And I said, well, I don't know. But one thing I know for sure is that in the next 5 or 10 years, whether we own K&L or not, it's not our main thing. That I know for sure, because we have other things to do in this world.
Yeah, I like it.
So it's finally providing us what a founder and owner wants out of a business. And that's kind of cool to finally be in that place. Now, it's taken a long time to get there.
Yeah.
It's worth the trip.
I love it. I love it. You know what? Your story is an awesome story. And I like what you said, because I tell my kids the same thing. My kids didn't come into my business. I have my son and daughter in the businesses, and I have a daughter and a son that are out of the businesses, right? And the two that are in the business, we've had this conversation, and, we're not just a paving company. We're a family that understands how to build business, and that's what we've learned to do. That's what we're good at. Yep. So, the paving business is not going to define us, right? Our ability to build things and grow things is going to define us in the long run, whether it's paving or something else, right? We're blessed that we've got 14 companies, and 5 of them are paving companies, and the rest of them are different. But they're all working for the same customers in the large facilities world. Yeah. And that's who we're going to be. We're going to be paving is where we've been for 42 years. I'm not saying we're ever getting out of that, but if we do, it's not the end of the world. We're going to continue to build things.
Yeah. We both have aspirations of coaching on some level. Like, it would almost be a waste to suffer all those years of hardship and, honestly, bad decisions, or less than good decisions, without sharing it for others, and then perhaps even getting paid for sharing that. It's not necessarily about the money, but that's an outcome of years of knowledge of doing things wrong, or could have done them better, and now we're doing them better, and now we know the difference. Yeah.
So think about this. Think about, okay, so when I was let's say for my last 20 years, I've been basically giving away civil engineering to my customers, and finding the best civil engineering for pavement specific that I could find, best geotech engineer I could find, and giving it to my customers, and that worked out pretty well. But we were spending a lot of money running around helping our customers, right, for free. And eventually my son came into business, talking about the second generation being a different type of intelligence and all that. And I told the story on my podcast, but he basically said, Dad, you're spending all this money, over $1.5 million a year, giving away engineering. We could do this unbelievably fast with the right technology. If we really invested in AI, this is 6 years ago, and drones and AI and satellite imagery and thermal imagery and all that. He goes, I think we put it all together, we could do what we're doing what we're giving away, we could do at a really low price, to 20 to 50 times faster than we are today. And this was again 6 years ago. And I think we're going to serve our customers way better than ever before. And that's exactly what we started working on. And today, that within a year, we spun out a new company that he was the startup CEO of at the time at 31 years old. And that company today is probably our most valuable company. It's now a separate company called Site Technology. But what we do, Keith, is we fly over properties everywhere in the world now. It was just the U.S. we planned on this, right? But our customers, many of our customers are worldwide.
Yep.
They've asked to go other places in the world. And so we'll fly about, we were doing about 50 million square feet of pavement analysis and management for our customers 7 years ago. This year we'll do 5 to 6 billion square feet. I'm trying to get the number now out of my leader of that company, but 5 or 6 billion square feet of pavement analysis and pavement management. And now guess what? Now when you're helping all that amount of customers, the opportunities are crazy abundant, right?
Yep.
And so that product is one that you talk about teaching and training and all that, and that's where your love is. Coaching, right?
Yep.
This is the best coaching tool you can have, because you get all this information, this data in a matter of hours from a million square foot site with great engineering. And then you're able to help them assess and coach them through how to maintain their property, right? As well as your crews and how to tackle a job, right? So anyway, this product is incredible. And one of these days, we should talk with you and your son about it, and we can tell you what we do. But this is a product that has bigger sales commission in it than you and I make in our businesses. Okay,
yeah.
To get in front of our customers, because it's a SaaS product and it's really inexpensive to operate once it's built, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but anyway, yeah. So it's
it'd be fun to touch base on it for sure.
We can do that in another call or something fun, because you can go after everybody that owns property in your area, the biggest property owners. If you sold this to them, number one, it's really inexpensive on an annual basis. It's a SaaS product, okay? But once they're in it, and if you're their go-to person that brings it to them as their consultant, let's say, or paving consultant, now all these customers are in front of you instead of your competition, right?
Yep.
So it's something I'll if you're interested, I'll show it to you. But it's amazing product.
Let's do a call sometime.
Yeah, let's do that. Okay, so hey, what we do is I get Chris, my buddy, our producer, listening to all this stuff. Chris comes up with a few questions to end this, and then basically comes up with kind of some nuggets of leadership that he learned in this conversation that we kind of highlight. Okay, so Keith, let's get Chris on. Chris, you ready?
Yeah, always ready. Keith, that was awesome, man. Very, very inspiring. I love your mission and your core values. It was very inspiring. I wanted to touch on something we found in your bio and background. So you all are second chance employers. How did the idea of giving second chances come about, and how has it contributed to the company's success?
Well, as you can imagine, when my son lost his driver's license, there was a reason behind that, right? You don't just lose it for nothing.
Yeah.
Well, that created a whole litany of other things, of other legal issues. And during that time of recovery from all of those issues, my wife would drive him to different places, right? And to UAs, to outpatient meetings, and the things that were court mandated, all these things.
How old was he at this time?
32. Yeah. So what we discovered is that without a hand up, without some help, people in the system, in recovery, the legal system, they actually, it's not built to succeed. Mm-hmm. So unless they have an employer that quoted, they're mandated to work full time, and yet Thursday at 1:00, they have a PO appointment, a parole officer appointment, right? Or they have a UA. Well, then they got to take, in some cases, the whole day off. So what kind of employer would be the kind that would keep them is those with a heart that says, okay, we understand your problem. These are consequences that you caused, And yet we're going to hold your job for you. We're going to make sure and get you to the finish line with that parole officer, because there's an end to all of them. You stay on track. We'll help you stay on track, but it's up to you to do it. And so that's kind of where that comes from. It comes from personal experience within our own family, to be honest. And then what we could hire at the time, 8 years ago, was people without jobs. Well, guess what? They're all out of recovery and out of prison and all this. These are people we're meeting. And so we started understanding that not only is that going to be probably a good portion of our workforce, but we can help them transform their lives from literally being inexperienced in almost everything, because most of them don't even know they don't know how to budget. They don't know how to buy a car. They don't know anything. So all these spontaneous conversations we have in our office are about, well, what about, how do I do this? How do I do that? Last summer, not this summer of 23, but summer of 22, I taught a finance class right here in my house. I had people, I put it out to the group. 5 different couples came from the company, and every one of those 5 couples have succeeded financially not because of me, but because they learned at that point how to budget and then did it, because they'd never done it before. Now, this winter, we're going into winter. Every one of those same couples looks at their finances and says, you know what, we're good. We'll make it through the winter, no problem. So that kind of gives you the beginning of why, and then some of the things we've been able to do for some of our people in the process. Like, we see them, we see where they are, and then we also see them as valuable because God made them valuable. If God made them, then they have value. My wife is very adamant about that. People walk into this office, they're a person and they deserve respect. Now, they break my trust. That's a whole different issue. But initially, they have value and we're going to treat them as such. Trust is another issue.
I like it.
That's beautiful. Any advice for other businesses out there who are considering, hiring second chance or becoming a second chance employer?
Do it with your eyes wide open. From the standpoint of, there's going to be issues. You're going to have to, this is going to sound terrible. If any of my guys listen to this, I don't mean it personally, but you're going to have to raise them. Some of them stopped growing when they got on drugs when they were 13. They stopped growing at 13 mentally and emotionally. So you're going to have to raise them. If they went to prison, they've got the prison yard mentality, the fight or flight, and you're going to have to train them away from that. So there's going to be problems, but they are some of your best, most loyal ones if they're willing to go through it with you. So do it with your eyes wide open. And the second piece of advice I give is allow them to keep their past in the past. That when they walk in the door, now some things we do need to know. Like if they have some child issue, we need to know what job sites you can't go on, right? We need to know that. But your past is your past. It's not your future. And so you need to let them keep their past in the past when it comes to keeping it visible in front of the company, in front of their peers.
Wow. That's beautiful. Thank you for serving the world like that, Keith.
You're welcome.
Thing.
It's fulfilling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And it sounds like, you shared one story with us about the gentleman who, previously sold drugs, and he was just like a awesome salesman going door to door selling driveways. I'm sure you have a ton of other stories of, pulling diamonds in the rough, essentially.
Oh, for sure. We've got guys that are fairly decent fathers now that honestly, when they started here 4 or 5 years ago, we gave them warning. You stay on the path you're on. Let me reveal to you what that looks like. You're going to be the dad, like your dad that you hate.
Oh, wow.
And so we have these conversations now. Could we get in trouble for crossing the HR boundaries? Probably. but we're willing to do that.
Mhm.
We're willing to cross those boundaries because those boundaries are less important than the value of the person.
It's a great point. It's a really good point. I mean, because, if you go by all, federal and state HR rules, right, you're not going to be able to have as great a relationship with your teammates that I think you could have, because if you don't talk about your faith and God and why you love your God and why you love your faith, right, they're not going to really know you. If you're not going to talk about, your politics and why you think a certain way and why you think politically one person or one group is better for our jobs and the business and their business that they're in every day and their family.
Yep.
You know what? Who are we if we don't share that with our friends and our teammates, right? Now,
Right.
don't have to agree with any of this stuff, right? But if we don't share these things that mean so much to us with our teammates, we're not really showing that we care about them, in my opinion. And HR law in the state of Illinois and other states really don't really allow you to, if you go by those laws by the book, you're not going to share much of the stuff with your teammates, and that creates, in my opinion, a terrible culture. So
Yeah.
I respect the fact that you're going to do what you think is right for your team, and your results show it. You got a better culture than you're going to have otherwise. So thanks for doing that, because more of us have to be that way.
Yeah, we got to change the world, but we got to start with the world that's in front of us.
Exactly.
And that comes with, like, we got to push against that resistance.
Exactly. 100%. So I really respect
Nobody
that. Cool.
can do that better than the construction industry.
No, you're right.
I think we can create a tidal wave. I think we can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're not timid. We're not timid people in the work that we do. We shouldn't be timid people in the conversations and the relationships we have if we care about the people around us. And by the way, when you show you care about your teammates, and I love everybody that works in my team, because they're wearing my name on their chest and their back, whatever, every day. They're working in my business more than they're with their family. So if I can't love them, right, as my friends, then you know what? I don't think I'm the place they should work. And I also believe that if you show that you care about your team, like them, love them, whatever you want to say, I think they'll care about each other a lot more. And when they care about each other more, guess what? Safety is at all-time best if they care about each other.
Yes,
because in our industry, Keith, when one person doesn't care about another person, and one person walks between a paver and a truck where they could breathe their last breath if that truck backs up in cuts them in half, whatever. I mean, if they don't care, they don't say a word about that move. They might say, "Oh, what a dumbass," right? Instead of, "Oh my God, there's my friend, and my friend could lose his life." They might yell at that friend and say, "Get the hell out of the way, stop the truck," right? They panic because, for good reason, they care about that person. When they don't care about that person around them, the safety is not the same. So I believe in our industry, where we have to demand great safety first in our industry, in our businesses, that means we better care about each other. And so for us, I love when my team really loves each other, hangs out with each other, picnics with each other, right? And you and I need to show that, as leaders, that need to show that we care, so that they care about each other, right? So
absolutely, 100%.
That's cool. Chris, what else you got, buddy?
Awesome. Well, I got some really incredible takeaways. Keith, you speak in very easy quotes to take down. You have a skill there, my friend.
Well, thank you.
And you came out swinging. I loved your first one was very pragmatic. If the dummies can do it, so can I.
Yeah.
Amen. I think if more people thought about that, we'd have a lot more entrepreneurs and people pursuing their dreams. Per hour spent paving is the best. If you normally work Saturday, you're stealing from your family. Your life gets better when you teach others to be the best and don't just, hang on to that for yourself. You get when you get in a wave, you don't stop the wave, you ride the wave. And if you're booked out 6 months, you're not charging enough. Keith, where can our audience find out more about you?
Well, I'm on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn at KL Callaway. And actually, Keith L. Callaway is my YouTube channel. I just started a podcast 2 weeks ago.
Awesome.
Called greatness from small beginnings. And I'm interviewing, I do some of them myself, but I've been interviewing people that did something. Yesterday, I interviewed a pastor, very close pastor friend of mine, who's had quite a journey. And now he's ready to retire, but he's not done. And that's the best thing about greatness. God put us on this earth to be great. Well, that means that it doesn't stop when we stop our jobs we did for 40 years. That's ridiculous. So anyway, that's how you can find me. I have the podcast, a whole bunch of shorts coming out right now on all of those platforms that kind of give little pieces of advice and that kind of thing, kind of a branding thing. And just we already talked about it, but I'm headed for coaching. So you'll eventually on those channels, you'll start to see some ways that I can, perhaps offer value in other ways. You'll start seeing those in the next couple of months. So.
Cool. Well, I liked, you'll need to raise them. You need to raise, and I've been around family members and teammates that have had challenges with drugs and alcohols at a young age until into their 20s or even 30s. And you're exactly right. I mean, unfortunately, the brain doesn't mature if through the biggest times of their maturity in their lives, 13, 14, 15 through 18, right? Their brain doesn't have the ability to mature. You've got to raise them, and I think that was an awesome point that you made, because for sure that's the case. And if you realize that, you'll do a good job with it. If you don't realize that, you're going to be lost trying to manage a person that's not been raised, right? So that's really cool. But like I tell you, I love the fact that like many in my life, people, myself included, you bust your butt and you do pretty well, but you never figure out why you can't get past a certain point. And then all of a sudden something happens in your life, and boy, things change for the better. And oftentimes it's a challenge that wasn't a welcome challenge, right? Like a loss of life in the family, a sickness, your son losing his license, right? How cool is it that he can tell the story of how terrible that situation was, but yet what a blessing it was for you, your family, your business, right? And now you're a business that respects that situation that he had and actually embraces people that have it. So that's a really cool story, man. To go from where you were back then, him, and you in a business, to where you're at today is a tremendous story. And tell it loud, buddy. It's really cool.
I appreciate that.
So Keith, we'll follow up sometime. And your son should meet my son. They're about the same age, and my son's having a great time leading in the same industry. And Austin leads all our businesses. He's the CEO of all of our companies, the ones that aren't paving companies, as well as the roofing business, the mechanical business, the door and dock company, all the things that we do. He leads them all and does a really good job, because he's a very humble, really good person. So yeah, if you guys ever want to get together, we should just you come to Chicago or Florida or something, or we might come out there.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'd love that. Absolutely.
All right, buddy. Well, great talking to you, and I really appreciate your time today on Ditch Digger CEO. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
See ya.
See ya.